Staring at the window on a cloudy morning, trying to lick our wounds while the tea is warming. Sometimes it's like a bird that's never shipped out. Sometimes you go around on a never-ending rail. This week has been a mess, but I'm gonna tell you, we're a bit at work, gonna make it brand new. We're gonna plot a way for a comeback. We all in this some time, and I promise you that. Promise you that. I promise you that. I know this can take a while, but it's gonna be alright, girl. And if it won't be today, the shoulder you can cry on. So cry if you wanna cry. Small rainbows will fill your eyes. You cry if you wanna cry.
Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. We're starting a new vlog today. We're going to try this new soda shop. So, this is a crazy angle. And then we'll talk about the books we're going to read. Hello my friends, hello. Okay, I have the sodas. Truthfully, I've had them for a while. I got them at the drive-thru and then I got home, took care of the dogs. I took a quick shower because I just got done with the gym and made myself some lunch. So here we are. Let's taste test these sodas. So this is a new soda shop to me. Utah is kind of famous for these soda shops, I think mostly because of the cultural impact of no alcohol, coffee, things like that. I don't mind because sodas are one of my favorite things. So today I always get diet and sugar-free because I don't like drinking sugar. So this is Diet Mountain Dew with sugar-free blue raspberry and sugar-free coconut. Let's taste this. I don't think I like that. I do not like that. Sadly, I don't love that. I've never had sugar-free blue raspberry before. That was a new sugar-free flavor. Like, I truthfully go to these soda shops so often that I know all the sugar-free syrups they have. And I'd never seen sugar-free blue raspberry at any of them before. So I was like, well, we're going to have to try that. And obviously you can't have that in like a Diet Coke because that tastes like a Gatorade. I don't love it. I don't love it. Okay, so now this one is a little more basic. This is just Diet Mountain Dew, sugar-free mango, sugar-free peach. So I know this is going to be good. It's just perfection. Like, I don't know. I go through these phases where I get on one food or drink, and that's all I want, like, forever. And currently, it's Diet Mountain Dew, citrusy flavored, peach, mango, anything like that. So that's probably why I like this one more, and that one was kind of like, bleh. I don't like it. Okay, so this is the Kindle Clear Out Readathon. No, not Kindle Clear Out. Kindle Unlimited Readathon that me and some friends are hosting. I thought I would vlog it. Truthfully, I am starting a little early because I will be out of town and I'm not sure how much reading I'll be able to get done. So I hope to read at least 2 books for this readathon. I know that doesn't sound like very many, but that's pretty good for me. That's pretty good for me, you know? Especially when you consider that one of them is this chunky boy. Children of Fallen Gods. This is book 2 in the War of Lost Hearts by Carissa Broadbent. I know I just had a Carissa Broadbent book in my last vlog. I don't even care because I love her so much and I'm very excited about this. Plus this is a buddy read with my dear friend Jessin. So I'm very, very, very excited. Super hyped. Truly can't wait to start this one. So now I've got a lot of books that are in my Kindle library that I want to read, which I know this one is a black romance that I've heard is very emotional, which I really want to get to. Please let me be able to read this one all the way through. I would absolutely love this so much. Another book that's on my Kindle Unlimited library is this fantasy romance. I really, truly would like to get to that one, but I think that I don't know that I'll get to that this week because I am prioritizing this fantasy romance, and I kind of want a different type of genre. So I have some physical books here that I've just been collecting that I haven't read yet that are on Kindle Unlimited, even if they are not in my Kindle Unlimited library at this time. But these are all books that I really want to get to ASAP. So one of them is this book. This is Forever After All by Katharina Mara. This was gifted to me by Cheyenne. I saw Cheyenne reading these in December and raving about them, and I immediately added them to my wish list, one of them, and this was the one. So I'm really excited about this. I really don't even know what this is about. She's the only one that I had really heard of talking about, Katharina Mara. I know Chandler also had a reading vlog featuring this book. I didn't see what I don't know if it was this book, this author. I clicked out of the video when she was talking about this author because I kind of want to be able to form my own thoughts. So I'm not sure what she thought about it. So that's an option. There is no audio for this, however, so I would have to read this physically. I tried to prioritize books that are on Kindle Unlimited that I either already own the audio or that were available to me either through Read and Listen on KU or through other platforms. So another book I really want to get to, which maybe now is the time, is Praise by Sarah Kate, because I just want to read it, okay? I mean, who doesn't like the idea of praise? Anyway, okay, yeah, that one. And then this one is a historical romance. This was on my list of authors I want to try and prioritize, and I do have the audio for this. It's The Theory of Earls by Kathleen Ayers. Now, my dear friend Jessin just read this, so I know what Jessin thought, so I asked her to tell me. Usually I'm like, don't tell me. But with this book, I was like, I really want to know what you think about it, like the writing and everything. So I know her thoughts on this, and now I'm very, very curious to see what mine will be. Definitely want to read this. I actually, truthfully, am in a bit of a historical fantasy mood, but most of the books on my TBR are contemporary, so we'll see. Okay, so now this is a book that I have had for so long. I bought this as soon as it was published because I'm just a huge fan of Brittany Cherry. And I also have the audio because I think I caught it on sale when it was only like $1.99. So, and I just haven't read it. I haven't read a Brittany Cherry book in a really long time. And I've been seeing other people like picking her up and reading her backlist. I know Sam, I think, has talked about this book from Sam Reads a Little, and I really want to read it. I know Jessin read this and loved it too. I'm sure lots of people have, but those are the two that I know of. So I love Brittany Cherry, and I don't know why I haven't read this, so I'm going to try and get to this one. And then this book is available as a read and listen on KU. So I believe Lacey told me about this book. Lacey, if you're watching, was it this book? I hope it was this book. But contemporary romance, don't really know what this is about. I didn't really tell you what any of these are about. I apologize, but also I don't. These are just books I want to get to. I'm not saying I'm going to read all these. Obviously, I'm not. For sure, I'm going to read this. And then I also, also another book that I really want to read, which I'm hoping to finish. I actually am. I've already started this. I'm about a third of the way through. But it's a bit emotionally devastating. And it is Revive Me Part 2 by J.L. Seeger. So this is a trilogy, 3 books in the Revive Me part of this series. And it's one couple in 3 books. So you don't get your HEA at the end of this book. The 3rd book isn't out yet. So I also really want to read this. Okay. There is a very long intro to this vlog, just talking about all the books I want to read. So I'll update you next when I've made some progress in one of these. I don't know. Also, wouldn't it be funny if I just came back and was like, actually, okay. Because this book too, this book is in my KU library and I also have the audio. And I want to read this. This is Second Chance Romance, Rockstar Romance. I've been hearing great things about it. I'm real curious what I think. So yeah, these are just all my options. Some of my options. We'll see. I'll check in with you later. Hello, friends. Hello. It has been several days since I filmed my opening clip. It's Saturday night, and I just finished my first book for the Readathon. And I gave it 6 stars. I literally just barely finished it, and I am flabbergasted at how amazing this book was. Honestly, I feel like I have not had a reading experience like this in a very long time, where I not only have felt, you know what, I'm just gonna put a picture in because I can't hold this because of my bed, and I can't hold it like this. Anyway, this is the book that I've been reading. I've been tabbing it. I need to transfer my tabs from my Kindle to my physical copy because I did mostly read this on my Kindle, a little bit of the audiobook, but mostly on my Kindle. I haven't had a reading experience like this in so long, where this book just lived in my brain and my heart. I was constantly thinking about the characters. I was constantly thinking about the plot. What the frick is this on my bed? Oh no. I'm sorry. I just was enraptured with this story. I thought it was excellent storytelling. Truly, I feel like this author is so incredibly talented. And the last book I read of hers, which was it my last vlog? It was my last reading vlog, was The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which everybody was talking about. It's all over TikTok. Everybody loves it. And I did really enjoy it. I felt like it was very good, but it was a 4-star for me. It wasn't super fantastic. It was a really good time. I had issues with it. You know, if you watched my vlog, you saw that. I read the first book in the series, Daughter of No Worlds. I read that I may have read that either in October or November. I don't remember when. I know I read it before Vlogmas because I didn't vlog about it. Well, it's on my bed. This is bugging me. Anyway, so Justin and I were going to read this together, and I've been out of town for a few days with my husband, and we, you know, had a great time, but I did not get a lot of reading done, which is totally fine. So we came home today, and I kind of just binged the whole thing, and I'm just absolutely amazed. I'm amazed at this book, not only because of what an excellent story it is, overall storytelling, you know, in any type of media that you either watch or that you consume, whether it's fiction, graphic novels, comics, TV, movies, anything that you consume like that is fiction, what you're really wanting is excellent storytelling. I mean, obviously, we all have preferences for the types of stories that we like, you know, romantic, sad, action, heroic, whatever. But overall, in that subset, what we're really looking for is great storytelling. And that means something different to everybody, right? Personal taste, life experience. I talk about that all the time. All the time. I talk about it all the time. It's something I find endlessly fascinating, to how people can really, you know, love something and another person can completely hate it. And a lot of that is based on their life experience and how they've been conditioned or trained or made aware to what types of media, what types of storytelling they like personally. So for me, this was absolutely excellent storytelling. This book is 6 stars. I gave it 6 stars, my first 6-star read of the year. And while I do have a few tiny complaints, one of them is on a writing line edit type level. I did notice, because I feel like I read this so quickly for me, I noticed that she does tend to repeat how she describes eyes. This is very, very common with writers. It's so common with all writers. They have this way that I talked about this in my Magnolia Parks review. They have this way of describing eyes that works for them, that gets across the emotion they're trying to convey. And because that works for them, sometimes they tend to use it over and over and over again. And a lot of times it's not noticeable unless you're reading the book like really fast, or unless you're made aware of it, you know? And the only reason that I feel like this particular phrase stuck out to me is because it was unusual. It was an unusual way to describe eyebrows. And I was like, huh. And then she kept using it again and again. But then I also noticed she used that verb to describe other things to mean like a lot of motion. Anyway, the phrase that she overused is eyebrows lurched. And she used it a lot. She used it a little too much. So that's like a very tiny thing that I found irritating, which truthfully is going to be hard to especially with a book that is this big and vast in scope of plot and story. I could see how that would be difficult to constantly be catching that, because that's the interesting thing about editing that I feel like people don't consider, is that you go through so many different phases of editing. Not only are you editing like big story picture, like plot points, plot movements, character growth, character development, and then like your final thing is line edits, where you're going through and editing the words to make sure that it reads well. And I always find that interesting, because while that's typically one of the last things that gets edited, and oftentimes writers, especially indie authors, maybe who are new or beginning, and I'm not saying that's what she is, they'll sort of forego that step. And that's one reason why I tend to struggle with some indie romance authors, is because they've skipped that last line editing part, maybe because of funds, maybe because they're not aware. I don't know why, but that is frustrating for me as a reader, because that's one of the first things that I see that will either say, okay, I'm going to enjoy this book, or I need to DNF it. And I find that so sad, because the author has probably gone through a lot of editing beforehand, where, you know, they've had big story, big picture edits, or they've had big character edits, or relationship, you know, things, big picture things that they've edited. My son must just come home. The dogs are going nuts. So because this is a sequel, I keep holding this. I know I've editing Crystal has put a picture right here. Because this is a sequel, we take off where the first book ends. And the basic premise of this whole series is Tizana, our heroine, who was sold into slavery as a child, and then she earns her freedom, and she is then on a mission to learn how to use her magic to free the other slaves. That's a big part of her goal. And in book 2, we see that as sort of a subplot. The main plot of book 2 is really wars that they're fighting, that her and Max, the love interest, have been sort of drawn into to fight these wars, because they're so incredibly powerful. They have these powers that are beyond what humans typically have, that can completely decimate armies. And I find it very interesting that they both struggle with that aspect, that they've been called to be commanders, or to be generals, the heads of these armies, like a secret weapon type of thing. And Max, specifically the hero, has used his powers before in war, and he definitely has issues and struggles, internal struggles with taking lives. And so you see a lot of his efforts are to reduce life lost. And I, you know, there was a part of me when I was reading that I felt like, this is a little bit naive. This is a war. You know, you're not going to just not kill people when you need to. Anyway, but I also admired that about him. So I loved Max's character. I think he's an excellent love interest. I loved how protective he was of Tizana, but also how he was so in awe of her power and was so ready and willing to see her step into who she was. And he wanted to keep her safe and protect her and give her this life that he feels like she deserves, because he's seen, you know, he's been her mentor for a while. In the first book, he was her mentor and sort of helped her learn how to use her magic. That now he just wants her to have a life of ease. He wants them to have a safe, happy life, a mundane life, a simple life. But of course they can't, because of the war that's happening. So this book has heavy political overtones, which I personally love in my fantasy books. I love seeing, you know, all of that plot happening involving the political agenda and why people are doing what they're doing. And I find that very interesting, and I really like that in my fantasy books. The romance is really the heart of the story, and I think that every other thing that happens, it affects the romance, and when the romance moves forward, it affects the other story too, which I think is very, very well done. But the world building in this is fantastic. I think that all of the characters are extremely well developed, but they still have a lot of room for growth. Like, we're not seeing our characters at a lot of character development in the beginning of this book. Even though we've already had a book where we got to see their characters develop, we're still seeing them have a trajectory of growth in this book, which I dearly, dearly loved. An interesting thing about this book, too, is that Tizana has this being inside her, this very powerful being who has the potential to be this great weapon in the war, but who also has the potential to overtake Tizana and to turn against them, basically. So Tizana constantly is battling with keeping her leash, or it, they call Riche it, this powerful being. They don't, because they don't have a gender for it, so they refer to it as they or it. And I found their relationship, Tizana and Rashae's, to be very, very interesting and fulfilling, because it's never an antagonistic relationship where Rashae wants all this power and Tizana is trying to shackle her. It really is more of a, almost like a symbiotic relationship where they're both getting something out of the power that they're sharing and using from one another. Now, another thing that I really liked about this book is that it has dual plot lines. So not only do you get Max and Tizana's point of view, but you also have a third point of view, which is a character you haven't been introduced to yet. And so in the beginning, you're getting that other character's story. And it took, for the first few chapters of that, I was like, what role does this character have to play? And it wasn't too long before I had guessed what the other perspective was for. And I was right, and I was very, very, very happy about that. I thought it was very clever. I think that when you have differing perspectives and sort of like dual storylines, it can be difficult, it can be risky, because every time you switch perspectives to a different story, you run that risk of your reader not wanting to continue reading, because the part that they wanted to know about, like, you've immediately like cut them off and went into a different point of view. I didn't find that to be troubling at all, because I was very invested in each of the storylines, in both of them. I really loved this sort of third character's point of view that we didn't read about in the first book. I loved that so freaking much. I thought it was incredibly clever. It was very, very well done. And I also felt like I was equally invested in both storylines. The thing that I think this author does really well with her books is she creates a lot of stakes with her characters specifically that is connected to the overall plot. And that makes a really big impact on your reading experience, because not only are you reading it for the plot reasons, but you're also reading it for the characters who are so deeply connected to that plot. They both have to work out. And that was happening with both of those storylines. Another reason I think that worked really well for me personally is that each chapter is very short. So you're not in one character's point of view for like hundreds of pages or 50 pages. You're in their point of view to get this information, and then you're immediately in another character's point of view to see that story progressing. And I also really thought that was impressive, because not only were they short chapters, but they were doing a lot of work to move the story forward and to reveal character information. This book was full of so many truly beautiful quotes. Like, this author, I am kind of amazed by her talent. She is so freaking talented in every aspect, and I think it's so difficult and so rare to find not only a great romantic storyteller, but also a great fantasy world-building storyteller, but also a great writer with words. I mean, there's some words in here that were so beautiful that I literally had tears in my eyes. They were so beautiful and so emotional. And they weren't even all about the love interests. I mean, there are like actually two romantic subplots in here. The main one is Tizana and Max. And then you have the secondary storyline, which has some romance in it too. But one of the most impactful moments for me in this book specifically was with Moth, who is a young boy. He's 13. Max and Tizana both care for him a lot, but Max specifically does. And at the beginning of the book, when war is happening, they know it's happening, Moth signs up for the war. He wants to go fight because he's seen Max do that. And later on in the book, when we see Moth and he's seen some battle, he hasn't actually killed, but he has been in battle. You can see that this 13-year-old boy who had all these dreams of glory, maybe, about war, you can see that the shine is starting to wear off, and he's a little bit haunted. But there does come a time when he has to take a life, and we get to see how he reacts and how he feels about that. And we get to see that moment with him, with Max, who kind of takes the role of a father figure with him. And it was so deeply moving and so empathetic to see Max, this powerful man who has killed, who has been in many battles. We get to see him talk to Moth in this moment when Moth is like wiping tears at this boy, and he's like, don't tell the other guys that I was here crying. I just need a minute. And that's when Max takes this moment to say, don't ever be ashamed for feeling. Don't lose touch of this part of your humanity. I mean, she says it so much more eloquently, but it just wrecked me. in like the best way possible. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. That's a scene that just stayed in my head for so long because I just thought, you know, I saw a TikTok the other day and I shared it to my story about where are the good heroes? You know, I'm so tired of the morally gray, emotionally manipulative and abusive hero in romance, and I, for one, am pretty tired of that too. I do like a villainous hero, but I feel like 99.9% of the time they're never actually a hero. They're just an abusive a-hole, and I just cannot ever get on board with that, like, not ever. But this TikTok was saying, you know, where are the Sam Gamgees? Where is Aragorn? Where are all of these good, morally superior men, heroes? Where are these characters? And it's interesting that I literally just saw that maybe yesterday or the day before, because that is exactly what Max is. Max is that type of hero. He's just a good, pure man who loves his woman and wants and will burn down the world for her, and he almost does. But he also wants to do the right thing, and I just felt like he was such a great hero. One of my favorite heroes of all time. I adored this book. As you can see, I've spent 16 minutes talking about it. I thought it was fantastic. It's 6 stars, my favorite book I've read so far this year. And I know that it's Kindle Unlimited Readathon, and so I have a TBR. And so far I've read this one book, and guess who's jumping into book number 2 right now? This girl. So, yeah, my TBR, bye. We'll get to those books another day. I need to find out what's happening because book 2 does leave you on a cliffhanger. So, if you haven't read this series yet, and you like fantasy romance, I would highly recommend this. I think it is so, so good, and it's just so well done. This is fantasy romance elevated to such a great level that I'm never going to stop thinking about this book. So I loved it. I can't say enough good things about it. And yeah, I'm going to start book 3, and then I don't know how far I'll get into it because the readathon ends tomorrow, and I do want to have this vlog up right away. So I think what I'm going to do is just start it, and then I will see how far I get. And I may not have the final review in here. I know I didn't get much B-roll. I didn't really have... This isn't really much of a vlog, but, you know, some weeks are like that, and at least I got a chance to talk to you about this book because it just stunned me in the best possible way, truly. This author is incredible, and I'm very excited to see what happens in the next book, in The Serpent and the Wings of Night, because I feel like that the thing that is so good about this one for me is just how unique and fresh, while still relying on classic fantasy tropes and storytelling, but still feels so unique and fresh, and the characters are so well done in there. And I hope that in book 2 of The Serpent and the Wings of Night we get better character development, which I felt was lacking in the first one. And I know she can do it. She's fantastic at it. But they seemed a bit weak. Underdeveloped, I mean. Not necessarily weak characters. They seemed underdeveloped. And I know, like, character development is a process, especially in a series. But I'm really excited to see what she's going to do with that one. Anyway, now that I've talked so long, I'm going to go start book 3. And let's see how late I can stay up and hopefully get it done. I'll see y'all in my next clip. Hi friends, welcome back. Welcome back to the vlog. It's Sunday night. We literally just barely finished our Kindle Unlimited closing live show. We just chatted about books and it was really fun. So if you want to just come and listen to us chat, you should watch that. It's on my channel. It should be the video right before this. But I thought I would just end this vlog here because I want this to go up tomorrow morning, so if you're watching this, I'm literally filming this the night before. And I only made it this far in the third book, the third and final book in the series, The War of Lost Hearts, Volume 3, Mother of Death and Dawn. So, I'm not really sure what I can talk about right now because, I mean, this is a thick book. I think this is maybe the thickest book in the series. It's like 700 pages. And at this point, what's basically happening is they're trying to resolve what the cliffhanger where you ended book 2. There was a cliffhanger, our couple was separated, bad things were happening. And so now here we are in book 3, the final book, where everything is hopefully going to get fixed. But obviously there are problems to be solved. And something that I think this author in general does really well is she has a lot of conflict in her books, and she has conflict in there in some very low moments where it just feels like there's literally no hope, like all hope is lost. And that's something that, you know, in general, fantasy books do that really well. They get you to that lowest low point where you feel like, how in the world are they going to solve this? You know, I think about, I mean, obviously probably the best example of that is The Lord of the Rings, with when Frodo, this little hobbit, the whole fate of the world hinges on him being able to take the ring and get rid of it. And you do feel that sense of, how in the world is this going to happen? And I really love when books get to that point. I love when they get to that point in a romance too. I've talked about that before, when the couple is at a point where they feel like, where am I going to, how can we fix this? How can this relationship be fixed? So in this book, we have both of those at play, where we have the fate of like the world, her people, the kingdom, not the kingdom, but you know, how in the world is this war going to end well? How are we going to win this war? But also, is our couple, how are they going to get back together? And it's not a typical romance where they have issues they're working on or there's something emotional that's stopping them. It's literally the fact that their lives are in danger and they don't know if they're going to make it and be safe and be happy. So I love how she's handling all of those dark moments and making you just feel like, I don't know how this is going to get worked out. But in all the other books that I've read by her, she always has something change. And it's always something, this is something I really like about her books too, it's always something that the hero or heroine does that initiates the change. It's never just like this magic cure that happens. It's always something that they either choose to do, or they find something in them to do it, or they find a solution to the problem. And I love that so much. I think that takes a lot of skill on the author's part, because not only is she coming up with a solution, but she has to figure out how is the character going to make that solution happen. So I'm so hyped about this book. I'm really excited. I mean, this is definitely the best fantasy romance series that I have read in a very long time, and I'm just thrilled to be reading it. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about it so far. I had I had great plans, you know. I was editing this video earlier and I was looking back at the books I wanted to read when I started this. Oh, silly Crystal, you had such high hopes. And I got one book and maybe like, is that a quarter, do you think? That looks like a quarter. 1 1/4 books read, but my enjoyment of the books I've read is very high. I absolutely love these books. I love them so freaking much. And I know they're not underrated at all. They're very well loved, but I don't see a lot of people on BookTube talking about them. I heard about this series from Olivia Reads a Latte. I saw she read the first one and she was just like raving about it in one of her vlogs. Her vlogs are my favorite, by the way. And I was like, wow, I need to read that. So that was where I first heard about this series from. But I've since also heard other people talking about it. So she is really the reason why I picked this book up in the fall. I think she had just recently vlogged about it. And I was like, huh, interesting about that. So I love this series. I think it's incredible. I just love it so much. So, all right, just a gush fest. Just a gush fest. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a good Kindle clear out. I said it again. I hope you had a good Kindle Unlimited readathon, and if you enjoyed, or if you participated, or whatever, and you didn't make it to the live show, let me know what you read and what you liked. I would love to hear that. And if you have made it this far, and you want to leave me an emoji, leave me a fire emoji, okay? And I'll see y'all on my next video.